Howdy folks, I'm Keith Bowen, and this is Hard Rock University Annoying Edition. Now, some of you have been watching may have noticed I'm doing dry dust collection now. And that's inefficient in terms of getting things done, so why the hell am I doing it? Well, it's very simple. This ore is being a total pain in the butt. The bulk samples I ran, not only did I get very poor recovery, like about 10% into relatively pure gold concentrates, but about 40% of the gold just disappeared entirely from my ability to detect it. My suspicion is this big water reservoir here for the to recycle for the concentrator, it still just wouldn't settle. It's just floating in the water for a long time afterwards. So what I need to do is absolutely minimize all the variables possible. If I assay a sample and then run it through the mill, then anything that's stuck in here I don't get in the assay. Whatever goes in the dust collection doesn't wind up being assayed. So I'm not even going to worry about assaying until I get to this right here. Okay. So now we have pulverized material, and I'm not only going to split it, I'm going to homogenize it a bit. I split it into two samples. I'm going to teach each one of those samples, and then the other bucket, and now we've basically changed the order in which those two things went, and then we'll just do that a couple of times, and that will give us a highly blended sample to begin with. And I could probably just take a grab out of it, but that's what I'm doing just before I split it, because I'm being paranoid as heck. I get very annoyed when gold evaporates on me. Very annoyed indeed. Now I'll put it down. Okay, that should be enough. Now I'm going to weigh 2 pounds exactly. $908 grams, right?
Yep. 904. 908, 909.
Yeah, that's close enough. Clean tubs. Clean pans. Two buckets of clean water with 1 tablespoon of jet dry per bucket. You notice it says H. That's for the high grade sample. I'm doing a low grade and a high grade. I did the low grade while Eva was grinding up the high grade. So now, where's my pen? There it is. A little sloppy there. Now, this material, I think maybe one of the big problems is that it just has so much fines when you do that it does not want to, I don't know, know, operate as individual particles or something? I mean, it's kind of like cornstarch in terms of it just forms this sludge, and I think the particles have a lot of trouble separating and settling. So I've got that. I'm just going to stir this, agitate for about a minute, and I mean, usually you couldn't do that. I couldn't hit the pan because there'd be stuff on the bottom there. Look, it's not settling. I think that's our major problem, combined with fine gold. We shall see. So, I don't know if you can tell, but that does not look like water in terms of its viscosity. It looks a little heavier and thicker. I'm going to put some in. Just going to agitate it a bit. I'm trying to kind of dilute and wash off the particles on the top without doing too much to the sludge underneath. There, see, we're starting to get some kind of settling down there. There's some heavies. And what I'm hoping is to create a decent gravity concentrate in the bottom. I don't have to be able to get pure gold, but if I can get most of the gold into this stuff here, then theoretically we could leach it if we had to afterwards. Now it looks like we're actually getting to something that approximates a pulp in there. I'm not sure what those fine things, I mean, it looks like the iron oxide, hematite, is just making a huge mess. Now this is very rich in iron according to the multi-element analysis. It's also pretty rich in gold, but I mean that looks like pretty much black hematite there. See? Okay. Now let me get the other one. I suspect that this ore is going to be annoyingly complicated to figure out an economic solution for. You could certainly leach it. Not a problem, except for something called regulations. Cyanide should just eat this stuff up, and that's why it's so popular in the old timers and the third world today. But we're working on new techniques to try and eliminate that or reduce it to just the big giant mining operations that really have the money, the expertise, and stuff to put in the systems to handle it, contain it safely. So, we've now got some kind of heavies there. Now I'm going to try and basically get some of that fine stuff out of there. In a production setting, this would be incredibly water consuming, but you can recycle water. So it would mean mainly that you would have to have a more a larger settling system or something like that. You could theoretically use a flocculant to get this stuff to clump together and settle better, but I'm afraid it would also clump the gold to it, and that would kind of defeat the whole purpose. Fairly black there. Okay, so there's our rough cons for the moment, and I'm going to set those to the side. Now, in a perfect world, all of our gold would be in this. We've reduced it by a factor of at least 5. We've gone from whatever we started with to 5 times that concentration, and then we could leach that. Ha, ha, ha. So, right now, we have what you call tailings in here. I'm going to decant 1 pan full of water. And what happens if there's gold in there? I can guarantee you there's some gold in there. Well, it's not going anywhere because we're saving all that water. Now what I'm going to do is get out my cell phone, set a 1-minute timer, and I'm going to wait for 1 minute for this to settle.
What made you settle on 1 minute for a settling time?
Well, the reason I chose 1 minute is I figure I've got like 3 pans of water in here, so each pan is about 1 inch deep. If that gold can't settle 1 inch in a minute, I can't really do much for terms of gravity separating it. What I'm trying to do is find some way of getting all this nasty stuff away from the gold. I suspect it's not in that pan right now. Well, a lot of it isn't. I expect a lot of it to be in this brown water. So now I add one pan of clean water to this. And start the timer again. Now, as strange as it may seem, if all of this does not get the gold to settle out somewhere and it's all in this sludge, I've still managed to get it away from probably 2/3 or more of the rock. It's counterintuitive, but if it really wants to float that good, fine, let it float away from the rock. Then you can throw the rock away and do something else. You might have a 2-stage system where after this is called desliming, once you've deslimed it, then this material that's much cleaner might work fine in a gravity separation for the coarser gold particles. On the other hand, if all your fine particles are with the slimes, okay, now you treat that entirely differently. You don't drive a Ferrari like you do a semi-truck. Different techniques. So now I've used up my 10 gallons of water. Come on over here and look right at the corner of that tub where I'm pouring the water out. See how you can see that corner? You're not losing too much in the way of heavy particles that way. You pull back, nothing shows up. You can actually see the layer of denser particles down there. And you can also see this is reasonably clean water. It's acting like water. You can actually see through it. And that may be what's causing the big issue. It may be the size of the gold, it may be both. See where the black is? That's where the heavies are. Take it back like that. Finish carefully dumping. And now we have 3 fractions. From each sample, we have a concentrate, we have tailings, and in this water we have slimes. Now, if the gold is in the concentrates, I mean this is where the majority of the gold is, you know that you can get a good gravity concentrate. If most of the gold is here, then you know, well, a gravity concentrate is possible, but it's going to be difficult. If your gold's in here, it's almost impossible to get a gravity concentrate, and you may have to go to something else. Now, all of the things I'm doing can be done on an industrial scale just fine. Some would take just enormous amounts of water, but nevertheless, the technology exists. What I've done is something very, very easy. Gold pan, wash basins, little jet drying water. By doing this, I can test the concept. Is gravity a good idea or not? Easily and quickly. Now, all the water is in the buckets, or dampening this. All the solids, except for a little bit on the table here, is somewhere in these 3 sets of containers for each of the 2 samples. So now I need to let these dry, I need to let those settle and then dry that. I may very well have to use an oven to help me out on that. Then I send it off to the lab and we can get some kind of an answer with pretty good definition unless something really weird is going on. For example, there are minerals of gold that will dissolve in water. It's very rare, but it theoretically could literally just be dissolving. So we will find out where it is. Because even when I get the slimes out of those buckets, I'm keeping the water until I get the assay results back. So this is the next morning, and as you can see, it still hasn't settled completely. And to bring the solids back down a little bit and see if I can skim off more water. Need to try and get this to where I can fit the solids and liquids left in 2 buckets into a baking pan so I can start doing something with it. There's clearly quite a bit of solids that haven't really settled out. Where is the gold? It should be settled on the bottom of this bucket. Now I'm going to let that sit there like that, just to kind of let any gold settle while I do the rest. Now this is one bucket from the low-grade material. And this is the other bucket. I bet you can figure out which one was from the first stuff. So now I get all this out of there, put it in a baking pan, and dry it up. This material here I'm going to add a flocculant to try and get all that stuff to clump together. It's just from Home Depot. But the purpose is to get the little particles to stick together and sink to the bottom. The problem is that can also cause the gold particles to do so. So the question is, again, at this point, where is the gold? Has it all settled out? Or is it still floating around? I mean, if half your gold is still floating around, Wow, that's a heck of a concentration. Then you just filter that and leach it. Let's see. It's sitting in here on the stove, boiling it down. So we will see what we get when it's done. This is the last sample. It should be about a couple hundred grams here. There's everything else ready to go to the lab. So when I get the results back, I'll let you know what happened and what it means. Until then, as the sun has already set and it's getting a little chilly, happy prospecting and keep it safe out there.